Welcome back to People Over Politics. We have a brand new guest, a special guest from another part of the county. We of course like to bring guests on from different areas of the state, different areas of the county, and thanks for joining us today, Courtney.
Hi, well, thank you for being here, Martin. I really appreciate it.
Yes, of course. You are a familiar face, especially to me and a lot of people in the Democratic Party. But tell people a little bit about yourself and who you are.
All right, for one thing, my name is Courtney Finklea Green, and currently I am the president of South County Democratic Club, which is in Prince George's County. And it's an honor to be the president because right now we are in a very interesting climate in the Democratic Party because we have a presidential race happening. And then we also have Maryland looking for its next senator. So I'm just very eager to help galvanize and collaborate with other like-minded Democrats in the county and the state to make sure that we are all about democratic empowerment. First and foremost, I did not begin my career in politics. I actually have 14 years in corporate America. And once I got married and had a child, I found out that my son had some learning disabilities. So I became very interested in social justice and education because I just saw so many areas where, children like my son who learned differently were not given opportunities or chances to thrive inside the classroom. So then that's when I became involved because I became like a mama bear pretty much. And there's
Yes.
nothing more ferocious than a mama bear. So I left corporate America. I became an educator. I went back to school and got a post-master's degree in education, leadership, and administration from George Washington University. And just doing lots of work in the community finally led me to the NAACP Prince George's County chapter, where I became the education chair. And I did a lot of work with putting programming into the community for children with special needs in areas of where there's over disciplinary action, which has been a huge problem in a lot of school systems where, you have little kids in kindergarten, like my son, getting suspended for manifestations of a disability, and that shouldn't happen. So I did a lot of work making sure that people were aware of this and making sure that they knew what they could do to defend themselves and what their rights were at the federal level as well as the state level. So after that, I went and I worked for Delegate Darrell Barnes as his director of education policy. And he was very much about the community being included on areas of education and where it would fall short. So we created a community advisory program for parents to come and gather resources and tools necessary to empower themselves so their children will get fair and appropriate education. So that's how I got into politics. And right now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the president of the South County Democratic Club. And what really got me into being a very strong advocate for the Democratic Party and making sure that we are empowered with what is necessary to be very positive in nature with it was that I actually co-chaired and co-founded Maryland Women for Biden Harris with the Honorable Aisha Brayboy, who everyone knows is our current state's attorney in Prince George's County. And it was a wonderful experience. I met with several different types of advocates and wonderful individuals like yourself and very strong women who were delegates, people who were councilwomen and what forth. And I just learned the power of just the Democratic Party coming together, charging forward for what they believed in. And the result of that, President Biden was
Yes,
elected. So
of
that's how
course.
I got really galvanized into the Democratic Party. Then I met a wonderful woman named Brooke Learman, who's now our the first woman comptroller of the Maryland state. And what was
Yes,
cool about
yes,
that was she's the one that pushed me to do Emerge Maryland, which basically helps women who are Democrats learn how to run for office and be successful doing so. And, based on that experience, I worked with her and it was amazing because I really learned how to be a part of a grassroots campaign and how to rally Democrats behind, their mission and their vision. So now that brings me here with you, Martin, and I'm just really excited to be given this opportunity because right now we need people who are young. Not saying the seasoned people are not as valuable, to help, refresh and reimage and continue to do the message of the Democratic Party, like a lot of the ones that we looked up to and mentors currently, as well as, moving forward into the next presidential election and the next Senate election.
Yes. Yes. I mean, absolutely. And, you brought up many great things. Daryl Barnes, he's definitely, a friend to Maryland and a friend of mine, known him for several years. And, I think one of the last things we talked about was the minority business focus. And, and if anybody knows Delegate Daryl Barnes, they know that, he cares about minority business participation. And so he's definitely always a champion. Of course, good luck in your retirement from the legislature. I know you'll do well. And the other thing you mentioned was Emerge Maryland. Emerge Maryland, for anybody who doesn't know out there, it's a powerhouse. I've seen a lot of their graduating classes, I guess currently, but then also from the past. So there's a lot of, legendary elected officials, from all different aspects. And so it's definitely, a great program, especially not just the name. And also the people who have graduated is it's a long list. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring up was the Southern County Democratic Club. Of course, I've been to a couple of you guys' meetings now. I spoke at the most recent one, and I love, of course, coming to other areas outside of Laurel. I of course love the great city of Laurel, but I love to explore other areas of the county because one of the things that I appreciate is the county has so many different geographic regions, right? Like you might go to an area that has like a beautiful lakefront, but then you might go to an area that has, more of a city feel. And so like, Prince George's County has that, diverse geographic areas. But one of the things that I was thinking about is, do you guys have any events coming up in the summer or, I guess we are in the summer or early spring that we should be paying attention to? I know I had mentioned earlier, I know the Young Dems have a fundraiser later this summer that I was telling people about, but how about you guys? Any big events?
So we are very excited to create a new program, which is called the South County Democratic Club Speaker Series. And the Speaker Series is basically bringing amazing Democrats of significance to Prince George's County, South County, to basically talk about what it means to be a Democrat and how we can galvanize and collaborate to make sure that we are empowered, to make sure that we are giving our candidates all the right resources and tools to be successful and to continue with the mission of the Democratic Party. So without further ado, I'm super, super excited. That's why I'm smiling so big. But our first guest for our speaker series is Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller. And as you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, she is a graduate of Emerge. So she's my Emerge sister. And so I am completely overjoyed and excited to have her. And most importantly, it's just great that the fact that she's coming to South County, Prince George's, like you said, Prince George's County, you have some rural, you have some urban, you have some suburban, you got a lot of different things going on in the county. And for her to come down to the very bottom of the county that's close to Charles County and, show that we matter and that she's going to come and talk to us about, a little bit about her past and what we can do to continue to light the flames for the Democratic Party is amazing. So that event will be June 6th. And it would be from 6 to 8 p.m. And to be even more, excited about it, Senator Gloria Lawler will be hosting it at her home. And if you would like to go, there's tickets on Eventbrite. So if you go to South County Democratic Club, you can Google it. So it's southcountydemclub.com. And then there's a link where you can go and you can purchase tickets to the event. And again, we welcome everybody from the city of Laurel, city of Greenbelt, wherever. I mean, like I said, we're all Democrats, we're all united, and we all should work together to make sure that we are marching forward strongly under the same mission and vision that our Governor Wes Moore poses. our Maryland Democratic Chair Yvette Lewis has, and as well as all the different Democratic Central Committees that work together in the state.
Wow. And I have a funny story, and I do plan to come, and one of the things I wanted to share was I remember one of the fondest moments of Lieutenant Governor Miller now was at a Bernie Sanders rally. So I went to a Bernie Sanders rally. What year are we in? 23. So I think I want to say it was 18. Maybe not even, no, maybe it was 20. Maybe it was 20. It was in Virginia, and I took the twins. So the twins actually came to the rally with me. I think it was just me and the twins rode up to Northern Virginia. That was the closest Bernie rally. And then, who happened to be there? Lieutenant Governor Miller, of course. She was just, a delegate or a former delegate at that time. And she was there with, I think, her daughter and her daughter's friends. And so, like, that was one of the coolest moments that, like, in the heat of everything, because the Bernie, he had the craziest rallies, I'll tell you that. So in the heat of everything, I recognized it. I was like, oh, what's going on? And she's like, oh, I love this moment, but she took a picture and I never got it from her. She's like, oh, I'll send you the picture. I'm still waiting on that picture from that Bernie rally. I'm sure she doesn't have it, but that was one of the fondest moments, of course, just seeing her at the Bernie rally. But that Bernie rally itself was, very touching. And of course, being able to experience it with my children was, definitely one of the, I doubt they'll remember, but we have images to remember it. But yeah.
Well, I think it's great that you take your children with you, especially in politics, because a lot of the times, you just see nothing about people like you and I who attend events. But I've been very fortunate that my son, who's 10, and then I have a niece who's 6 years old. They have done a lot with their mom and their aunt, just participating in different political activities. So I have a funny story too. My son and my niece, they had to go and hold signs for Brooke Lehrman at University of Maryland for when we were waiting on the results of the Apple ballot. So it's so cold outside. Like literally, like if you would like sneeze, it would just be like a frosted cold mist that you would see in front of you. It was just really, really cold. So we're sitting there and my niece looked at me and says, so we're here to help Earth's woman become comptroller, but our job is to sit here and hold signs and freeze. And when she said that, Westmore's team turned and looked at her. Katie O'Malley's team turned and looked at her. And of course, our people from, Brooke Lehrman's team turned and looked at her. And they go, oh, it's okay. You're helping, change history. And, you're making it so other women can go and run for office and win. What can we do for you? By the time I turned around, somebody had gave my niece a designer donut that was pink with sprinkles on it and coffee for a 6-year-old, because they felt so much compassion for her, because literally we were out there for hours holding signs, and she basically no, is politics holding signs in the cold? Which is a valid question, but and you've run campaigns and you've been a part of many. Sometimes it's not glamorous, but it's just the work that you have to do to cross the finish line. So when you got a little 6-year-old saying that, I know that she'll remember, and I know I'll remember, and my son remember that they were part of history, and they're only in elementary school, and they're already understanding what politics is and what it means, even if it means holding up the sign in the freezing cold,
Yes. And I think to your point, to what you said, it's important for your kids to experience, civic engagement, public service, and, especially in a meaningful way. For me, I was volunteering early on, and I hope to carry that spirit, into my children. I know that if they see, littering, they think like, oh my God, who littered? I gotta, clean this up. Like, Dad, let's do a cleanup. Like that's in their, DNA, because that's things that we were doing since early on. And I would say to an extent, they enjoy it, right? Like sometimes they don't love being at campaign events, sometimes this, that, and the third. And but there's other times they love it, like, Dad, are we going door knocking? They love door knocking. And they're some of the best door knockers. You should see them out there. At door knocking, lit dropping. But then also, I feel like kids kids are natural in politics, right? Like once they know what you're doing, I feel like they can share your message better than you can. Like, you
Right.
know, I remember I was walking, I met somebody, and you know, I told him I was council guy for Laurel, and he said, "Oh yeah, my dad's running for mayor. Oh, he's always in the community, and he's gonna be the first black mayor." And I was like, "Oh, you know," but it was pretty cool though. But you know, like I said, sometimes they're the best campaigners, right? Like, um, and I think the other point I was making was you also mentioned the glamour. You know, I would say that you know there's only a small percentage of politics that is glamorous.
Mhm.
That would be sometimes you know going to events. Not all those events are glamorous. I promise you. There's sometimes you gotta you know sit through a 90-minute speech from Steny Hoyer. You know, which is okay. You know, Steny was one of my first bosses after college. I'll say that, but you know, some of them are not the most glamorous events, you know. But uh, I would say a lot of the work is done in between the gaps, like what you don't see, right? Like even in the legislation and the policy making, a lot of those are, you know, a call being made or, you know, an amendment being added. Like, you know, it's not what you see at the end where you see them coming together for the picture. You know, it's a lot more that goes into it, and you know, it's a lot more nuanced. You know, just politics and uh, um, government in general, right? So I would say that I implore everyone to get involved wherever you are, you know, and if it's not go all in and get involved with the South County, you know, Democratic Club, you know, maybe it's just learning who represents you, simply learning who represents you because I think it's important knowing who represents you because the thought is like you should be a more engaged citizen. I feel like since I've been involved in government the last 10 years, I look at like the world around me differently. Like I understand, you know, when decisions are made sometimes like the the things that you don't see necessarily, like the plays that are made behind the scenes. Oh, I understand what happened there, or you know, I know who pulled that there. You know, so there's a lot of nuances, and I'm sure you understand this as a you know a Democratic playmaker and someone who's been in politics. Like there is a lot more nuance to what people see.
You're 100% correct because I mean, a lot of times I do a lot in the community and I am very visible. What people don't see is that downtime. I mean, I'm very big on strategy. And anyone who knows me, what even just sitting here today in front of you, it's strategic. You know, even you being here is strategic. You just don't pop up and have a podcast. I just don't pop up and have this conversation with you. A lot of stuff goes on, like, you know, before that even happens. And for me, you know, I'm really privy to something that you just said about people understanding what it means to be involved, civic engagement, and be a Democrat. So, actually, on June 13th, we are having a rep from the Maryland Democratic Party come to the South County Democratic Club to train the club members and whoever else would like to come. And it will be at the municipal building at Forest Heights from 7 to 9 o'clock about what does it mean to be a Democrat? What is the Democratic Party? What is the DNC? What is the DCC? There's so many acronyms and so many things people don't even understand. A lot of people don't know that, you know, Maryland has a very rich history when it comes to the Democratic Party. And if you don't really understand all the inner workings of it, all the nuances of it, then you don't know what you can do to carry on that message. And like you said, you know, there's always the glamorous part. Yes, we're having this amazing, fun speaker series, but so much goes on behind the scenes to making sure that it happens. Because at the end of the day, we have to make people excited and, you know, wanting to be able to come forth and work together as one body. I always tell people it's not a Courtney show, it's a South County Democratic Club show. We're all working together, we're all collaboratively intertwined. And when you're like that, you have strength. And you're even strong when you understand what the purpose of that is and how you need to move forward. So, like you said, the glamour part, that's great. But there's so much work that is done behind the scenes and even after that event or after that bill is passed to make sure that whatever you have worked on is implemented, it's positive, and that you can move on to the next and continue to do great in the community and for the Democratic Party.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you know, I and that's what I think is important And I'm glad that the energy is there. I'm glad that you guys are building up. There's so many, Democratic clubs, for instance, that have been building up. I know that I think it was the AAIP Democratic Club I've seen over the years, grow, and I believe they founded over the last few. I think even the Latinos of Prince George's County with Senator Victor Ramirez. I believe he's the president.
Yes.
That one is very active, and so there's several ones. I'll be at the Ellen Franklin Roosevelt one at the end of the month. That one is a pretty classic one. I'm not sure how old, but I think they're one of the older ones for sure.
Most definitely.
Yeah, I think
one thing a lot of people don't know about our Democratic Club was it was started by Steny Hoyer and Mike Miller. So ours is pretty old as well. And, people just see, me in front of you, but there's a very rich history. And a lot of that came out of that Surrattsville, Clinton area, very highly political. Yeah. And as you know, they've been a powerhouse for many, many years. So it's great to see so many young people, come aboard and want to continue the tradition of, the mission of the Democratic Party. And it's also great, even though you're not South County, to have someone like you. I mean, when you came to our event earlier this week, you got so much praise because you're doing the work. You're just not going to the glamorous events or having a podcast. You're actually making a difference for people who don't have a voice, people who are disenfranchised. And that's the reason why, I'm very proud of you for taking that next step to run to be not only a mayor, but the first Black mayor, to be a young African-American male, because other people are looking at you right now. You're not a rapper. You're not a basketball player. I'm not saying it's bad, but you're not a YouTuber. You're somebody out there that someone will say, oh my God, Martin, he's doing it. Maybe I can do it too. And the same hope that Barack Obama gave so many African-American men and women to be in politics, you're now doing that in your city of Laurel. And I give you much kudos for that, much success to you. But like I said, you're doing the work.
I appreciate that.
I'm doing the work.
You make me tear up here. Right. But I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. And a lot of times, I don't stop to celebrate the wins or, to smell the flowers, to smell the roses, as they would say. So I do appreciate that. I think that sometimes I can be so much of a serious person and get ingratiated in the work. Right. And I think to an extent, one thing that you said was, you said I reminded you of like a Black Panther, and that was stuck with me because I never really thought of it like that. But then I bet very much so, like, I definitely could be very militant in my way of thinking, and then, like, even though I'm friendly, I could be very, like, stern and, like, the way I'm saying things and my position. And so I understand that. Like, I used to commonly say when I was president of the Young Dems. And they know, anybody who knows me, I used to say, guys, don't forget, I am a revolutionary. And I used to say that to them all the time because, we should all strive to be revolutionary, right? Like, we should all strive to change the world. And so, like, that's what I commonly told the Young Dems. And I'm proud of course, the Young Dems. And I want to encourage more Young Dems, to run, because I think that, my biggest legacy with the Prince George's County Young Democrats was the fact that, like, not only did I help continue to carry the mantle, as you said, because, clubs and organizations, they have these legacies that long precede us, right? Like, there's many of the great leaders that that were part of Prince George's County Young Democrats, like Nicole Williams or Melanie Miller or, Nick Charles. So, several great names. We could just go down the list. Jazz Lewis. We can go down the list. But I would say that one, my legacy would be that, I helped some of those young people who were around me realize the power they had and empower them, right? Like, so putting them in the room with these legislators, right? And then, getting them to give them their opinions and getting them to be included at the table and, these groups. So they were actually, like, making amendments and, being decision makers. And so a lot of them realized, like, firsthand, I can do this too. And this is a great training ground. And so, I do encourage more people. And I think that, like any democratic organization, especially the Young Dems, we should encourage those young leaders to not just be future leaders, but present leaders, because a lot of them are present leaders and they're already leading. So, sometimes the next step is just running for office.
Right.
And so definitely want to encourage all those young folks out there to run. And I'm sure you're encouraging people to run. So absolutely.
Most definitely. And what's great about what you just said is when I first decided that I wanted to run to be elected to be president of the South County Democratic Club, we had a lot of seasoned individuals. You don't want to say old, seasoned, because they have valuable knowledge and information that we can learn from. And what I see that is there's like a gap, a generational gap. There's the seasoned vets, and then there's the unseasoned vets like you and myself. And a lot of the time people think that they are pitted against each other. But what I think is beautiful about what's happening in the South Carolina Democratic Club is we're working together and we're learning. Like, we're very tech heavy. We're really social media heavy. And then there's more history. There's more knowledge. There's more practicum. We have a lot of theory, but they have a lot of practicum because they've been doing it longer than us. And the fact that we're respecting each other, even though we're in different, millennials, there's, Generation Z, baby boomers, we run the gamut, the plethora of different types. But we all have a strong passion for the Democratic Party, and we're learning together, we're working together, and it's great to see that synergy. Because a lot of time you hear stories where, they don't want the younger ones to come in, or they don't want to leave their perch to allow us to, take over, to carry their legacy. But it's important because you just mentioned how you encourage so many young people to vote, and you encourage them to galvanize and run for office. But it's also great when you can have that seasoned vet work alongside you and other strong leaders to help pull up the next generation. Because sometimes you don't see that happening all the time. And then often there's like a vacancy or there's a hole. So it's all about each one teach one. It takes a village. Back in the day, you have grandma and grandpa, and
Sure.
there's the grandma and grandpa of the Democratic parties, and they should be helping us. And like I said, I'm seeing more of that, and I think it's great. And like you just said, just to keep encouraging, promoting, and letting people they too have power and they can use it to make a difference is very, very paramount in what we're doing these days.
And I had one other point that's kind of like a 2 point, but to your point, for one, you guys all have power, but the fact that we also need the older generation, right? So I am humbled in understanding that I do believe that I'm a smart person, but I don't know everything, right? And I haven't been through everything, so I should seek advice from my elders and people who have been around and done some of the things that I'm looking to do, right? And so I definitely tell people to be humble, right? Because a lot of those people who are older, because sometimes there's this ageism in politics, right?
Right.
Like your ideas are too old or your ideas are too young, right? But I think that there should be a balance. And I one of the things I think that young people should have a voice, and I think that old people's voices or older adults' voices still matter, right? And it matters because a lot of times we're saying the same thing, we're just saying it differently, and,
Right.
and we're coming from a different place, and so I think that it's better to ask questions and understand where we're coming from, because sometimes we just think that we know where the person is coming from. And so, like, when we ask more questions and engage them honestly and genuinely, we can then gain a better understanding. And sometimes you realize that you may not change the way this person thinks, or and it might not line up with you, right? But the thought is like you can respect that they have a different viewpoint, and you might find some things you can agree on. And so that's the real, like, that's the real pudding. That's the politics, is like, you know being able to move along amicably, even if you guys do not agree on everything, but also listening and being able to receive it. Because sometimes that information you might not want to receive right now, but it might be very valuable information later. So, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So I think that was a great point. The one thing I wanted to know, and I know the young Dems are going to be big on this, and it's an issue that I've always cared about. So in the state of Maryland, 16 and 17-year-olds have the right to register to vote, but they're only allowed to vote in municipal elections if that municipality, allows it. And so, would you guys support, local efforts? And since we have so many municipalities, if there was a local effort going on?
Most definitely. One thing I learned in this past election while working on the Brooklyn campaign comptroller is people forget about the municipalities. You know what I mean? They forget about them. They're very much a part of the county. They're very much a part of the state, and they too have a voice. And there's so many.
27 in
Yeah,
Prince George's.
there's 27, and I mean, I have a lot of a couple of your friends who made me aware that there's 27 of them, and people need to take more interest in understanding, first of all, what the name of the darn municipality is, what the history is, what they need, what's going on like legislatively, like what's happening in those communities. And people sometimes they underestimate what a teenager may know who are 16 and 17 years old. I mean, you have your children, your twins saying, my daddy is running for mayor. He'd be the first black mayor. How old are your kids? They're not even teenagers.
No, they're six. They're six. But
And
yeah,
they know what's going on. So if those
153
little,
years. Yeah.
yeah, those sweet little babies know what's going on, for darn sure a 16 and a 17-year-old know what's going on. And we have a lot of people who are interested in government, in civic engagement, and they have minds and thought process. I mean, when the pandemic happened and, George Floyd, a lot of kids, I mean, I'm also an educator as well. I didn't say that, but I think it was pretty apparent when I told you I switched careers. But a lot of the kids, they had strong discussions in second and third grade about Black Lives Matter or what was happening with, the housing and gentrification. They had questions about like war and drugs and gun usage. These are little kids who are around the same age of your children. And I say that to say that I think that a 16, 17-year-old, they should be given the chance to use their voice. And I think it may even encourage them to vote like later on when they're able to vote in presidential campaigns, because they're being included at an earlier age and showing that they have a voice and they're not disenfranchised just because of their age. So I fully support it, especially if it's a democratic initiative, of even if it's a municipality. I'm all for it.
Absolutely. And it's something that I'm definitely, looking to bring up. I know that it's in other municipalities like Greenbelt and Hyattsville, I think Mount Rainier. Another question around voting. There's a couple municipalities, and especially in this area that have passed. And I know that we talk about demographic shifts, right? So when I moved in, Laurel was still a majority white area. It was changing, but it was still a majority white area. And now it's a majority minority area, and especially African American, African born immigrants, but definitely Latino and Hispanic. And so, for municipal elections, one of the things that I've been pondering is non-citizen voting. And so, have you guys ever thought about that? Would you guys support that? It's the same way with 16 and 17-year-olds. I know that 16 and 17-year-olds, that one has come up more times than a non-citizen. But as I see the county demographics changing, I see like a lot of the communities becoming, more Latino, more Hispanic. And so with that being said, I would think that the honest response would be to allow them, a voice in the community and allow them a voice in local elections, special local city elections where they're, using services and so on and so forth. And so have you guys given that thought? Is that something that
I think that's something that we would need to learn more about, because I never want to answer a question and I don't have all of the information behind it. You are correct. The demographics are changing and they are changing rapidly. And for me, we need to take notice and heed to that, because their voices do matter, especially considering the composition is changing. So I would never not want to include them, but I still would want to know more information behind it to give the correct answer. And I don't even know how that will line up with the Constitution. But at the same time, let's say if it doesn't line up with the Constitution, how do you factor their voice in so they are heard and that whatever their needs are met they are giving the resources and tools to be successful and live and have the American dream. I don't think that just because you're not a citizen, you shouldn't have access to, living and having the American dream. But I think that if we had
And that's a
if we had someone come and talk to us about
oh,
it,
you might have cut off there, Courtney.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I think that if someone would come and talk to the Democratic Club about it and told us, like, a lot more of the stipulations behind it, we'll be very receptive to it because it's a real thing. I think it's like 38% now, maybe Latino in the county.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a significant number. That's not 3 to 8%. That's 38%. And I look at many different areas in government, not only in our county but in our state. You don't see a lot of representation from the Latino community, and that does need to be changed. So I feel like the bigger question is you need more representation from that demographic because we need to make sure that we hear their voices and that they have the right resources and tools to live the American dream. But I also think we need to be educated on what stipulations surround them being included in the voting process. So my answer is not no. We just need more information. What are the parameters? And also, we need more representation of Latinos. I'm Black all day, every day, but I also know 38% is a tremendous number, and they too need to be heard.
I agree. The representation 100%. As far as the constitutionality, I'm sure that's something that we could look into. I know that from a city aspect, Hydesville is doing it. So that's a city that I am going to be looking at closer and to see, exactly how they instituted it, but how it actually works every year. Because I know they've had it for a few elections now. So Hydesville would be probably one of the closest models for us to look at. And so you guys are at least open to hearing about it, learning more about it. So I'll make sure to get you guys that information and even a presentation probably, because, the thought is like, what does a package of being more inclusive look like? And I think that's one of them, at least particularly for me.
Right. And like I was saying earlier about representation and that demographic being underrepresented, you are always open, and any other, elected official or even community leader to come to South County Democratic Club so we can listen to what the concerns are and see how we can work together in a collaborative effort and also support what needs to be supported, because we all are Americans, we're Democrats, and we need to make sure that everyone's voices are heard and the right policy, like Westmore is very big on the right policy, is put into place to ensure that. So we have an open door and we welcome all.
Yes. And, we definitely wish Governor West well. I know he just passed his 100 days not too long ago. I know I saw a post about that. It feels like already a year is down. But definitely good luck to you and your administration. And as you say, or as you mentioned earlier, we got a big Senate race. So I'm sure we'll see a lot of activity coming through Prince George's County. If you don't know, all roads lead through Prince George's County and Baltimore City. To win that, just statewide in general. So
exactly.
Just never forget that. But thank you so much, Courtney. I had a few rapid questions, so I want to make sure I asked them. I almost forgot.
Okay.
The first question I have for you is, what is your favorite quote?
Well, don't laugh. I have created my own quote. And my quote is called, "Your vote is your currency." Basically what that means is it doesn't matter if you don't have money, but your vote is powerful. Fannie Lou Hamer, she risked her life and she gave her life to make sure that you and I are sitting here today, that we can vote. And a lot of times don't understand that our ancestors did so much to, make sure that things could be put in a way where in the future we were allowed to have what we're doing right now at this very moment. You know what I mean? The ability to vote, the ability to galvanize, the ability to have our voices heard. And that's powerful. Think about it. You just said all the inroads are to Prince George's and Baltimore to win an election. So that means our county is very significant because we hold a power that other politicians need to be elected to office. So you have to understand that your vote is your currency. that is an invaluable measure that they're coming from far and wide to Prince George's County to get. So when you understand that, that it's like having $1,000 bill in your hand. I don't think that exists, but that's how strong your vote is. And that vote allows you actually to have power and hold people accountable and to put the people you want into office. Because think about it, they coming here to get our vote. So they come here to get our vote. You need to make sure that, okay, I'm going to give you this, but what are you giving me in return? So that's the currency. It's like back in Africa, you had a cowrie shell, but guess what we got? We have a vote. So yes. I tell people to make sure you exercise your vote. Our ancestors fought and died for us to sit here to be able to do that. And that is not to be taken lightly. And that's the reason why you're sitting here right now on this podcast, about to run to be the first Black mayor, because our ancestors allowed themselves to put themselves up, to give their lives, to risk their, whatever they were doing at the time, so we can live a little bit better. So that's your currency. So my quote is my own quote, and I'm not being egotistical. I'm being real. Your vote is your currency. So that's Courtney Finklea Green quote.
Hey, and I guess you got to, I forget, what do they call it? Copyrighted. You got to copyright.
Oh, yes. Look, almost like the Wu-Tang symbol.
Yes. Favorite superhero and why?
Oh my gosh, favorite superhero. I would have to say, I think it would be Storm, because she can control the weather. The weather impacts us seriously. Think about it. If it rains, we're not having a picnic. If it snows, we're not going to school. If it's sunny outside, guess what? We're going to have a block party. So I feel like depending upon the weather, it really determines what activities happen for that day. And that's a very powerful thing. I mean, yeah, she had a really cool hairdo and a cool costume, but this is the fact that you can control natural elements.
For sure.
That's the end all be all. Think about it. You log on the internet in the morning to weather.com to make sure what are you going to put on that day. Are your plans going to change for that day? Or if your hair is straight like mine, is it going to blow up into an afro? Like, you just need to know what the weather is. So I just think it's really powerful to be able to control the natural element. So I would say Storm.
Storm, definitely great. And, I've never really heard anybody break down the weather like that. But when you think about it, that is one of the first things you do is check the weather. So the last thing I have for you is favorite hobby.
All right. Well, my favorite hobby, a lot of people don't know, I am really big into the arts. I actually have a graduate degree in art. I have an MFA, and I do a lot of abstract art painting. And I think it's really good because you don't see a lot of people thinking abstract art is real. But when you look up, you see Basquiat, several millions of dollars. They're like, oh, what is that? He put a bicycle in Haiti next to a basketball. And
he loves Basquiat,
mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's so much meaning and so much symbolism behind abstract art. And for me, I think it's good because even in like a brushstroke can kind of have someone understand what emotion that artist is trying to convey or what emotion they were feeling. I mean, you look at someone like Van Gogh. He was infamous for his brushstroke work. He would have all of a sudden like these really, really thick, broad brushstrokes. Then you have really thin ones, really airy ones, really flat ones. And it really got you to understand the emotion and the intent behind what he was trying to do. Even with Starry Night, his brushstrokes, it made it seem as though the wind was blowing. If you think about it, it looked like the stars were twinkling and the wind was blowing, all based on a brushstroke. It didn't look like an exact replication of like a picture of what night would be, but it was his abstract, interpretation of that. So for me, even if I were to paint you, I'm going to paint you how I see you, how I think you are to be, what colors mean certain things and symbolism and values. So I feel like you could unpack so much from abstract art. And I just think that it's just a thing where people throw it away thinking it looked like a little 5-year-old did it, but there's so much there and there's so much to look into the beauty and the imperfections, because there's always beauty and imperfection. People don't understand that, but there is. And walk away with your own interpretation and story of what you're looking at. So my big thing is to paint abstract art.
That's very cool. And, I always say art is open to interpretation. And, now I'm thinking of the little Rorschach puzzles or something like that.
Right.
Now. But yes, I appreciate it, and tell people how they can stay connected with you.
Well, for one, I'm the president of the South County Democratic Club, so you can log on to www.southcountydemclub.com. And I'm Courtney Finklea Green. So on Instagram, I be myself. That's my handle for there. I'm also a CEO and founder of Mustard Seed Mom, which is a nonprofit that helps children and their mothers and their families who have been disenfranchised, whose children have disabilities, and they are given the tools and resources to have a life where they too can succeed in and outside the classroom. So that would be themustardseedmom.com. That's another place you can find me. And on Facebook, I'm Courtney Finklea Green. So it's been an amazing time being here with you. As you could tell,
Of course,
I'm
of course.
shy. I love to talk, and anything that is about empowering people and making sure people have the right resources and tools to be the best that they can be so they can give to their communities and make impactful municipalities, counties, states, and countries. I'm all for it.
For sure. And, we look forward to, seeing you out there and, all throughout Maryland. And, I definitely will be at that June meeting. I
Yes,
look
June
forward.
6th, everyone. June 6th, South County Speaker Series featuring Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller from 6 to 8 p.m. And you can go on Eventbrite and buy it, or go to www.southcountydemclub.com and you can purchase a ticket there. And we'll be excited to see you. And we're much looking forward to it.
Yes, yes. I will see you soon. And of course, appreciate the invite. Everybody, Forest Heights, it is the other end of the county, but there's a lot of good people over there. And one is my friend and a friend in South County, the acting mayor, Troy.
Yeah.
So just wanted to give him a shout out to, assuming his new post and, wishing him well.
Yes, and the thing that I like about you and Troy is that you two are fearless and you do the work. So congratulations to you both in advance for your next post. And I couldn't ask for a better vice president than Honorable Troy Lilly. And I'm glad that you two have a friendship, because we need to see more people like you guys doing what you do. And we thank you for that.
Yes, of course. And we will see you soon, Courtney. And of course, happy Mother's Day
Thank
to
you, Daryl.
you. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Because like I said, we wouldn't be here without you guys. So
Right.
we appreciate you. Okay, later.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, that was Courtney. Of course, as we said, there's many great people all around the county. She is another dynamic individual, a dynamic woman, and you've heard me say many times, the future is female, so watch out. And as I say, mind your business and drink your water. See you next time.